Hi, this is John with Fix It Planet. Today we've got a Surface RT 1516, and I realized I hadn't had one of these videos. I have the Surface Pros, so I already gotten started on this, but I want to show inside here this cable and the digitizer board. There's the digitizer Flux cables that are actually in the display cable, and those are excuse me, those are actually attached to the opposite side of that board. So this is a little metal tab of some sort. There's 4 of them. I removed those and do not put them back. They don't serve any real purpose. So we're going to just warm up the bottom edge of this screen and finish separating this and point a few things out. So as we begin to separate the bottom side, you can see the flex cables for the digitizer are starting to be exposed here and here, and there's not a lot of distance there to work with, so that bottom edge is your most important part. When you're separating this, you really don't want to cut into those with your tool. You could potentially damage this board. This board here is the digitizer board. You mess that up and yeah, it's going to be bad. So just for the sake of this camera shot, I'm going to reach down in here and see if I can get this connector off so I can kind of show you how it's connected to the display, so that when we flip it around, you'll kind of already know how that's connected. So there's the tape, and you can remove that from the other side, but I'm just trying to show it in this video. There's a little handle, sort of clamp, that clamps down over the top of the connector, and that's what it looks like right there. So just kind of wanted to show that before we flipped it over and took the back off. I'm just going to go ahead and disconnect the cable now, and that way I can go ahead and open this up a little more so you can see better. This cable has another connection on the back side of this board, and this board here again is the digitizer board, so it's very delicate. I'm going to lay this down for a second and kind of take a look. So that connector there is for the display. This is the digitizer board. Digitizer connector. Flex cables are on the other side. And now we are going to have to remove the back cover to get to all that. So you can't do this repair without removing the back cover. There's 2 screws on either side of this kickstand, and we'll be removing that first. These are T5, I believe. All of these screws on this tablet are T5. If I can remember right, I never can seem to remember the size, but in this case, pretty sure they're T5. So this kickstand just sort of has another little hinge. It has 2 spring-loaded hinges on either side, and then this little hook that connects in the middle there. And then now you can get access to all these screws on the bottom half of the tablet. See if we can't get these out of here really quick. Looks like somebody was anyway, I can get under that plastic there with a little thin tool and then kind of get it started. And I'll use my spudger and just sort of go through and release all the little tabs, little plastic tabs that are holding it into place. There's no adhesive on this, but it is held in with plastic tabs all the way around. And then once you kind of get started on it, you can sort of feel the plastic as you sort of shift it around. Everything will start to pop loose. And then the power button sits through a cutout on this plastic. I can barely get this tablet into frame here, so I was trying to get it really up close. So here's the tabs on this side, the little cutout for the power button, tabs on the other side. So I was trying to get this as close as possible, so I can barely fit this in the frame. So we get all those out. There's one more under this piece of tape that says surface on it. Now on iFixit, they make this look like it just opens up like a book, but it does not open up like a book. So these back or these top two corners up here on either side have to be lifted straight up before you can remove the whole back. So be careful of that. Don't try to open it up like a book on all the way before you've done that. This is the battery connector, which is actually attached to the back cover. We're just going to lift the clamp and we'll be able to slide that out. Now that we have our battery disconnected, we can do our job. There's the two flex cables for the digitizer. Those are also held in with little clamps. And we'll be able to lift up the clamps and slide those cables out. And then the whole screen will come right on out of the rest of the frame. There's nothing that you need off of this. Everything you need will come with the new display. I'm just going to close these hinges on the side so I can lay this down flat. Now that cable running down the middle attaches with a pop connector there. It's at the top on the main board there now. I'm going to disconnect the bottom connector so I have a little flexibility to work around. And then we're going to start scraping off the excess adhesive left over from removing the screen. We're going to do this all the way around and then clean the residue off with some alcohol and put some fresh adhesive on. Okay, so we'll go all the way around the edges. Clean that up. Now we've got our new adhesive in place. We can put our new screen in, give it a test. So while my cable is kind of loose and flexible, I'm going to go ahead and connect the display. Make sure it's seated all the way in and put the little clamp back down. I'll just go ahead and put my tape back in over it. It's not that big a deal. My little pop connector came off, no big deal. That just makes it easier for us to get these through the little slots. We can line that up. And then there's not a lot of slack in these cables. They're pretty short. So we're going to just use our tweezers to kind of help us line that up and get them seated all the way into their connectors. Push the clamps back down. So I wasn't sure about this connector over here. I just wanted to make sure that it was seated all the way. So I opened it back up and made sure it was seated properly, and it was. Get a little close view. You can see how they line up. I'll go ahead and reconnect this other connector here down at the bottom. Make sure it's seated all the way. Put our pop connector back in. Now we're going to reconnect the battery. This part, excuse me, this part here, again, the cable's kind of short, so I don't have a lot of slack in that. And for me to be able to see what I'm doing, unfortunately, I could not get the camera angle in such a way that you can kind of see me putting it in there. So unfortunately, it gets blocked by the back cover while I'm getting it seated and connected. Closing the clamp door. And we'll lay the back in its place. See if it's got any juice. Nope. And we'll have to plug it in. So I'm just kind of double checking, looking in around the edges here. I've got to remove the masking, and I want to see how much room I have. So I don't have a lot of distance on this bottom side. So we're just going to put a spudger in there and reach in there and peel this masking off. Then we can kind of set that down in there, and then we'll remove the masking off the other sides. This repair is considerably different than the other Surface Pros. And so we're going to put a couple of spudgers in here in the corner so that it doesn't stick down all the way, and we're going to plug it in and give it a quick test. It's not up there, dummy. Down there. There you go. So yeah, the Surface Pros, you know, considerably different repairs. Each one is actually unique. There's not one of them that is exactly the same, but this one is especially different in the fact that you have to remove the back cover to get access to the digitizer cables. So I thought, well, we better just go ahead and do this video, but I'd already kind of started on it. That's why I had the 3 sides already done before I started the video, but you didn't miss much. Nothing important. So there are a couple of antennas on the top side, but they're not as bad as the other Surface Pros. It's really the bottom side that you need to be most concerned about. If you dig into those flex cables, you could damage the digitizer board or the connectors or something like that. So that's really where you need to kind of focus your attention and make sure you're really careful not to do any damage down there when you're taking the screen off. Got all our screws back in the top side. Everything's seated properly. We're going to go ahead and put our plastic cap back on. It just snaps back into position. You may have to apply a little bit of pressure to get everything to snap into place. Make sure everything's nice and flat. Looks good. This tablet's dirty, so we'll clean that up before we give it back to the customer. Who knows? They were probably eating chicken while they were holding it or something. Who knows? So I'm going to use the tip of my spudger to lift these hinges back up. Then we can put the kickstand back on. So again, it hooks in the middle there. And then we can line up the screw holes on either side and put the last 2 screws in. Go ahead and take this plastic off the front, plug it in. We'll put a little pressure around the edges to get a good bond on the new adhesive. Power it on, give it a quick test. One last test here. So everything looks like it's working fine. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Appreciate it if you like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye bye now.